This morning, it's my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker. And I want to introduce to you Pastor Robert Hilson, who's come all the way from D.C. Would we say Maryland or D.C.? Where do you like to be known from? Right. It's easy to say D.C. And that's a long way to come. And so Robert's here with a team of people. Yeah, why don't you come up so they can see who I'm talking about? And it's probably easier, actually, if you tell everyone, who you are and what you're about and your family and all that sort of stuff. But we just want to say welcome. It's awesome to have you with us, brother.
Thank you. How you guys doing? All right. So I have created a huge problem for myself up here. And here's how. It started on Monday in America. I forgot to pack a paper Bible. So if you happen to have one, I'm going to need it. Thank you. I use my Bible personally. I use my phone for my Bible like all the time. Part of it is because I can press play and it reads to me. I'm part of that generation and I apologize for it. But the other part of it is I have my phone with me everywhere. And so it's one less thing for me to remember, but if I use it as my Bible, I also still have my Bible with me everywhere. And so that's kind of the way that it works for me. I also created another problem when I walked in here today. They said, hey, you want to use the headset microphone or you want to use a handheld? And I said handheld because I have a fat head and that headset didn't fit right. Now here's the problem. I hold the microphone left-handed because I don't know, I started doing that. But I also write left-handed, and I don't have slides. So this is going to be fun. We're all on an adventure together. And if you think I'm terrible, it's cool because I leave today. And the only of you that I'm going to see this week is Pastor Nathan and Steve and Adam. I met Nathan and Steve last year. So, hey, anyway. So that's it'll be all right. I'm from Washington D.C., just south of Washington D.C. So if any of you read American history, which honestly I don't know why you would, because I don't read Australian history, but if any of you did, the President Lincoln was the president for us that ended slavery in the United States. He was shot by a guy named John Wilkes Booth. John Wilkes Booth ran into the swamps of Maryland. I live like 5 minutes from that swamp. That's the only way you would ever know where I live. And so, but we live there. It's just outside of Washington, D.C. It's about 30 miles. D.C. stands for District of Columbia. I don't know why either. I don't. So, but it stands for District of Columbia. So I have to confess, we're here doing a little bit of like church conference stuff. We're teaching a little bit. Honestly, the Wesleyan Church in North America, our head guy told us, hey, if you can go help the Wesleyan Methodist Church in Australia, that'd be great. So we come out here and we talk and we do we say what we do. I don't know how much it helps, to be honest, because we live on the other side of the planet, and things are different here. Like brekie's not a word where I come from. And I don't know how much it helps, but that's why we're here, because we want to help. How about that? And so that's what we're going to be doing. And one of the things that happens when I come on trips like this is I always start the trip out a little bit grumpy, because I know I'm going to be spending the next 2 weeks with pastors. And although I am one, I generally don't like them. Like, Nathan's great, but he didn't start out that way. He didn't start out a pastor. Like, he started out something else. That's why he's great, Generally, I'm not a huge fan of pastors. The reason is I grew up around them, okay? And this is what I know. I know that we define how great a pastor is almost as much by what he did not do as we do, like, by what he did do. Does that make sense? Like, if you ever catch your pastor drinking, God forbid, because every single good thing he ever did before that moment didn't happen now. well, I'm leaving. We have a perverted view of holiness. It's not what God intended. For us, and I've been here twice, so I know I'm at least in the ballpark. For us, holiness has become what we don't do, not what we do. You know, it's rough. We spend more time talking about what we shouldn't do. Well, I was a youth pastor for about 4 years, and I did one dating sermon series, and I did it early on, and I did it, and I finished it, and I said, I'll never do that again. It doesn't mean that I never taught about dating or love or marriage or any of that after that. I just never did it all in a series, because I did that series, and I spent 3 weeks telling these kids what they should not do, rather than telling them who God intended them to be. You know, from that moment, I always said, never tell them what they should do, always tell them who they could be. You know, and we've forgotten, you know, who we could be. So I'm gonna start Matthew 25. Matthew 25, we're going to start in verse 14. Again, the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. So the kingdom of heaven, when we hear this phrase, what do we usually think of? Heaven, right? Like when we get to heaven, that's what it'll be like. Here's the problem, all right? The first story in this chapter is the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 bridesmaids. So basically, these 10 girls go out in the hills. They're waiting on the bridegroom to show up. Bridegroom shows up, but half of them didn't bring enough oil for their lamps. So they miss out on the party. So, like, if when we get to heaven, you can still miss out on the party, we can't really be talking about when we get to heaven, right? We're talking about the kingdom of heaven. So what does that mean? So I started reading this, and this is the realization I had. Like, well, we can't be talking about when we get to heaven, because, like, when we get there, God's not going to kick us out after we already got there. Like, you know what I mean? You know? And that's kind of what these two parables are talking about, is kind of how you get kicked out. But you can't get kicked out after you're already there. You get kicked out before you get there. And so I'm confused, and I'm trying to figure out, well, what does he mean by kingdom of heaven? So I looked up the Greek. This is something I generally don't do, because I feel like, and if you do this, I'm really sorry. I feel like a lot of times pastors look up the Greek so they can tell you how much smarter they are than you are. But see, here's the thing. I use a website called blueletterbible.com. You can use it too. And I clicked on a button. I don't actually know Greek or have one of those dictionaries, you know? And so I looked up the Greek. And the word for kingdom in this phrase is referred to in the Bible. It's referring to the reign of the Messiah. The reign of the Messiah, the reign of Jesus, right? And then heaven is like the sky, heaven, the heavens. So what's Jesus saying? He's saying, man, when I go back to heaven and I'm in charge. So when he says the kingdom of heaven, he's talking about now. He's talking about right now. Because like this is the reign of the Messiah. I don't know if you knew that. But this is the reign of the Messiah. So he's talking about now. So again, the kingdom of heaven. So again, right now, it can be illustrated by the story of a man going on a long trip. He called together his servants and entrusted his money to them while he was gone. Oh, let me write this down for you real quick. All right? So we can remember some things. All right? Can you read that? It's kind of not. Let's try black. We're on an adventure together, remember. All right, so there we go. All right. The kingdom is now. The kingdom is now. That's the first point if you're taking notes. And if you're not, sorry I wasted your time. So the kingdom is now. The kingdom is here. So the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by a man going on a long trip, blah, blah, blah. He called together his servants and entrusted his money to them while he was gone. He gave 5 bags of silver to one, 2 bags of silver to another, and 1 bag of silver to the last, dividing it in proportion to their abilities. Then he left on his trip. So first point is this: the kingdom is now. The second point is this: you have, now I'm using lowercase, I have no idea why, according to your ability. Now, I don't know if you guys are wimps like we are in America, but if I were to say this in the United States, people would be like, well, that's just not nice, and I don't believe it. You have according to your ability. You've been given according to your ability. You see, in the States, we get trophies not according to our ability. We get trophies according to our parents' ability to pay for the league fee. If your parents can pay for you to play in the league, you will get a trophy by the end. And everybody gets cupcakes at the end of the game. Because we're all winners. But that's not the way this actually works. And according to Jesus, that's not the way the kingdom of heaven works. You've been given according to your ability. That's just awkward. But it's not a matter of better or worse. You'll see later as we go through this, but you're not given according to your ability and then judged on whether you outran somebody who was given more. You're given according to your ability and then judged according to your ability. You see, that's grace. In the real world, you're given according to your ability and then judged on everyone else. That's business. Being given according to your ability and judged based on your ability is grace. Right? Let's keep moving. The servant who received the 5 bags of silver began to invest the money and earned 5 more. The servant with 2 bags of silver also went to work and earned 2 more. But the servant who received the 1 bag of silver dug a hole in the ground and hid his master's money. All right. After a long time, their master returned from his trip and called them to give account of how they had used his money. Third point, you will give account. All right? So, the servant whom he had entrusted with 5 bags of silver came forward with 5 more and said, Master, you gave me 5 bags of silver to invest, and I've earned 5 more. The master was full of praise. Well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I will give you many more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. The servant who had received the 2 bags of silver came forward and said, Master, you gave me 2 bags of silver to invest, and I have earned 2 more. The master said, well done, my good and faithful servant. You have been faithful in handling this small amount, so now I will give you more responsibilities. Let's celebrate together. So this is a sub-point, right? Under the you will give account point, more is better. Is this making you uncomfortable yet? All right, I'm going to keep going. All right, then the servant who had 1 bag of silver came and said, Master, I knew you were a harsh man, harvesting crops where you didn't plant and gathering crops where you didn't cultivate. I was afraid I would lose your money, so I hid it in the earth. Look, here is your money back. But the master replied, You wicked and lazy servant. If you knew I had harvested crops where I didn't plant and gathered crops where I didn't cultivate, why didn't you deposit my money in the bank? At least then I would have gotten interest on it. Then he ordered, take the money from the servant and give it to the one with 10 bags of silver. Another subpoint here. Laziness has consequences. I'm missing letters in there. It's not a spelling bee. It'll be all right. Laziness has consequences. This is the most uncomfortable part of the whole passage, okay? Then he ordered, take the money from this servant and give it to the one with 10 bags of silver. To those who use well what they are given, even more will be given, and they will have an abundance. But from those who do nothing, even what little they have will be taken away. Now throw this useless servant into the outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. See, that's really uncomfortable. Because it seems a little bit unfair, right? If you have more, you shouldn't get more. And if you have less, you should get more. Right? That's the way we feel. Let me suggest something to you. Jesus is talking to his followers, and he's telling them what it looks like to be, honestly, he's telling them what it looks like to be an earner in the kingdom of heaven. He's telling them what it looks like to do your job in his kingdom, right? Now, just for a minute, I know it's uncomfortable. Just go here with me. Will you do it? All right. I'll never ask you to do it again, I promise. I'm probably not coming back here, so it'll be great. All right. For a minute, imagine this is a business. You own the business called Kingdom of Heaven. And let's say they sell brownies. And it's the Kingdom of Heaven, so they're gooey brownies. You guys do brownies the same way, right? I know if I said biscuits, that's something completely different here than it is at home. And it always confuses me because I say biscuit and you say biscuit, and it's a cookie to me. And a biscuit at home is breakfast, and it makes you real fat. And it's kind of like, anyway, brownies are the same here. Okay, so they sell brownies, and they got to be gooey. I don't know if y'all do gooey brownies. I only do gooey brownies. It's part of why I'm, anyway. So they sell brownies. The Kingdom of Heaven business sells brownies. You have somebody that works in that business, and they do awesome. You give them responsibility because you think this is the amount of responsibility that they should have. See, they were given according to their ability. So you give them this responsibility, so they're running the night shift. And all of a sudden, they're running the night shift amazing. And the night shift makes a lot of money, and it's the most efficient time of the day. You look at that person and you go, well, good job. I'm going to give you more. That's not unfair, right? That's smart leadership. Now you have another person. You give them, according to their ability. So what do? They mix the brownies. Maybe, you're a little worried. This is a brownie shop, so you attract young people in there. And this is just, it's a young person who came in with maybe not the amount of aptitude you wanted. And so you're like, hey, you're my brownie stirrer. And every time they stir the brownies, there's still powder in the middle of the brownies. And now you got brownies that when you bite into them, they poof. And that's not a good brownie. So what do you do with that person? Well, they had little. And if they keep giving you poofy brownies, they will have nothing. Again, this isn't cruel and unusual. It's good leadership. It makes us uncomfortable, though. Why? Because we're the people who work in the brownie shop. So we've each been given responsibilities in the kingdom of heaven according to our ability. But here's the problem. We come to church, and most of the time at church, they tell us to hide, our silver in the ground. God says, hey, in the kingdom of heaven, you look like a 5-coin person. Awesome. You go to church. Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. If you do any of those things, you'll go to hell. Well, I have a God who's very quick to send me to, I should bury this. I don't want to lose my coins. That's the way the church works. That's the way we teach. We should live like the gospel matters. That's the last point. We're going to end on some hopefulness. I promise. We'll get there. I know last week went 32 minutes, so I got 13 minutes left. I'll be all right. We'll get there. We'll get there. Live like the gospel matters. I didn't say live like the rules matter. They do. They do matter. They do matter, right? But I have this feeling that when we get to heaven, Jesus isn't going to be having us take account. I think when it's time for us to take account, when the master returns, I got a feeling that he's not going to ask us how well we followed the rules, because you see, when he was asked, what's the most important rule in all the scriptures, Jesus said this. He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. He actually went as far as to make the second one nearly equal to the first. So honestly, if we were to unpack this, because I don't actually believe pastors are evil or stupid, right? And the way that I've been talking, maybe you get that feeling. I don't actually believe that. So if we were to unpack this, I think that this is what happens in our world, is that we weight the love your God part too much, and we weight the love your neighbor part too little. So loving God, well, how do I love God? Like, how am I supposed to love God? I want to honor God. Well, how do I honor God? I honor God by following his rules. So what do? We go find the rules and we follow them. But Jesus, when he said, love your neighbor, like love God, and the second is like it, he's making them almost equal. God's always got to come first. This is a rule of nature, right? God always was first, so he always must come first. You know, like if you're a parent, you get that. Like I was first, so I will come first, or I will kill you. At least that's what my dad said to me. I don't know. It was something along those lines. So it's a rule of nature, right? God always comes first. He always has to. But when Jesus says this, he elevates people. It's right there. And so what I actually think, how do we fix this, is we live like the gospel matters. We care about people. We love people. I think if you want to, when the master returns and we're called to account, he's going to ask a couple of questions. And it's actually cool. They laid them out for us real obvious in the scripture. How well did you follow the great commandment? Did you love God? And did you love people to almost the same degree? And then he's going to ask us, how well did you carry out my final will and testament? That's called the Great Commission, right? This is important. Well, I know we gave it the name of the Great Commission, right? So for me to put it on par with something that Jesus called the greatest, maybe not. But then you think about it, and what's the most important thing you do right before you die? Which Jesus didn't die. At this point, he'd actually come back. So it was right before he left. But even still, you're talking to your kids and you're going on a trip. What's the most important thing you're going to do right before you leave? It's the last instructions. Don't forget to turn off the oven so the house doesn't catch on fire. Or don't kill your sister. You know? Or in the case of a final will and testament, don't fight over the money. It's important. It puts things in order. So what does Jesus do before he leaves? He puts things in order. And he says, hey, go. And I want to point out the first thing is go. But when you come to church, our first word is always stay. Right? There's a problem there. I know you don't look at a new person and say, hey, welcome, go. I know that's messed up. You don't do that. But have you ever had a Sunday where worship was just so amazing? And Pastor Nathan, you're man, no offense, but I kind of hope he doesn't preach. Can we just sing? You ever had a Sunday like that? We have those every once in a while. And we never just sing because pastors have to talk. That's what we do. We have moments like that. And anytime you have a Sunday like that, what happens? Everybody sticks around longer. They hang out in here. Everybody's a little closer together. The groups are a little bigger. Could I say that's the opposite reaction we should have? I mean, I love those times. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to be the Grinch. I know. But I love those times. But we should have an opposite reaction. When God meets us like that, we shouldn't huddle a little closer. Maybe we should, but as soon as that we break the huddle, we should run a little harder towards people that don't know him. Because I feel like on the day we're called to account and the master returns, what he's going to ask is, how did you use the gifts that you were given to love people better and bring more people to me? That's it. And see, here's the problem that I really When it comes down to it, this is the problem I have, but it's also the hope I have and the reason I do what I do. The problem I have is we have this dynamic story, this dynamic creator, this amazing, just amazing gift. It's called Jesus. It's called the gospel. It changes our lives. It makes everything better. It takes somebody like me who should be nothing, and God says, no, I have a plan for you. And you know what? I'm going to gift you according to your ability. I'm gonna give to you according to your ability. And all I'm going to expect is that you achieve according to what I give. You know? And then I get to have all this fun doing what I do. And somehow I end up in Australia. Like, God is good that way, though, right? God does amazing things. We've all ended up places we never thought we would and just went, wow, God. Right? We have this amazing creator and father and leader, and we have this amazing story that's meant for all people. He died for us so that we wouldn't be bound by sin anymore. It changes lives. It should change every life. It could change every life. But our churches don't grow. As a matter of fact, I don't know about Australia, but in America, the church is shrinking. The church that I work at, when I asked it to change, 400 people left and said, no, thank you. We don't want to move to the next generation. We don't want to change the way we're doing things. We don't really care about the people that aren't here right now. We care about doing things the way we've always done them because that's what's comfortable and that's what we like. We have this amazing story, amazing creator, amazing savior, and honestly, a God who wants to reach every human, but we slow it down. We slow it down. We'd rather pursue holiness because burying our heads in the ground is easier, it's safer, and maybe if we do all the right things, God will find it acceptable. Maybe if we don't do all the wrong things, it'll be good enough. Maybe if we save the 5 talents and give them back to God but don't do anything with them, maybe that'll get me by. That's not what this parable says. I'm not going to reread it for you because it's super awkward and I don't like it. Because I wish I could tell you that, like, it doesn't matter what you do and there is no judgment. Just say you believe in Jesus, you know? Like, that's my preference. But we have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to love people that don't come here and don't know Jesus. I love the teaching English. That's beautiful, right? Talk about somebody who's alone. Like, if you can't speak what other people are speaking all around you, that is a lonely feeling. And it's exhausting because you're trying to understand all day. I'm more tired now just because I can't understand exactly what everybody around me is saying. And you guys are speaking English. You know? It's amazing. We have a responsibility to love those around us. We have a responsibility to take the gospel out there. And sometimes we don't do it. But this is the thing that okay, I've been negative. This is the thing that I think is amazing. All the time, I run into leaders that believe that God has huge plans. I run into leaders that believe that what God has planned for their church is so much more than it is now. And that's not to say this isn't good enough, but it isn't. More is better, and laziness is punished. It's in the story. I'm not just being a jerk. It's in the story. Jesus said it. I know we don't highlight that part of the Bible because we don't like it as much. It's fine. But Jesus said it. You know? And I run into leaders that believe it. And I run into churches that are excited. And I run into I run into old people. I run into young people. I run into people all the time that are like, man, I just can't wait to tell somebody about what God's doing in my life. I can't wait to bring them to church. I can't wait to tell them about Jesus. I'm excited. So, big picture, it's a little ugly. But like down on the ground, God's doing something. God's doing something. And since I get to leave, and I've been mean the whole time, I just have one question for you. As far as I can tell, you have a pastor that believes it. And that really, really, really just wants to see this community changed and saved with the name of Jesus Christ, period. And as far as the research I've done goes, there's plenty of people around here that don't know Jesus. Even though you got lots of churches, I mean, you could kick a soccer ball down the street and hit somebody that's going to hell. Right? So you got a pastor that really believes it. You got leadership that wants to go somewhere, that wants to see people saved. So my question is, what do you want? What do you believe? And are you willing to spend your life in the work of the gospel? Every day. It's what we're called to do. It's what we're made for. We're made to spend our lives loving other people in the service of our God. Let me pray for you. All right. And then I might go hide so nobody hits me. All right. God, we love you. We love you, and, you know, I think every one of us just wants to serve you and just wants to please you. Lord, I pray that every day you would open our eyes more and more to the things that will please you. God, right now I pray for Hills Church. I pray that this church would be even more every day, that the light that shines out of this place would grow. I pray that every day that the work that you do in this place would grow. God, I pray that every day that the work you do in these people would grow, and I pray that every day the work that you do out there because of these people would grow. Lord, I just pray that one day in 50 years, these people's grandkids and great-grandkids and great-great-grandkids would look back and say, what happened there? It must have been amazing. God must have done something, because I knew all those people, and they weren't that awesome, but I know God is, so he must have done something. Because ultimately, God, that's what we need. We all know we're not that great, and we know we need you. And really, that's what we want. We want you to take us and do your best with us. We love you. We thank you for being who you are. We thank you for loving us back. We thank you for letting us be a part of this. Lord, I just pray that these people would be ready for the great things you have in front of them. Amen.